Do not make these 5 mistakes if you're new to car audio. Hello, my name is Nicholas Snow, and today we're going to be going through the 5 things that people overlook when they're getting into car audio. The first mistake that people make when they're new to car audio is looking at the peak power versus the RMS power. So for example, an amplifier says it does 1,000 watts at 1 ohm peak power. That means you're never going to see 1,000 watts from that amplifier. You want to find where it talks about the RMS wattage, because that's what the system is actually going to do on a daily basis. So if it says it does 1,000 watts at 1 ohm peak power, but 500 watts RMS, that's what you're going to be looking at. Same thing with subwoofers. If the sub says it can handle 1,000 watts peak and 500 RMS, you want to look at that 500 RMS rating rather than the peak power. Imagine the peak power kind of as just a marketing thing to get their numbers higher. The RMS is what you want to be looking for on amplifiers and subwoofers. The second mistake that people make when they're new to car audio is buying the biggest sub or subs they can rather than the subs that are going to fit their space. For example, if we have a 15-inch sub that fits in the trunk, but it barely fits, most likely it's not going to have the required airspace that we need for that subwoofer. So sometimes, in many cases, it can be a better option to go with smaller subs that fit the space right rather than a bigger sub. I know a lot of people just think, go with the biggest thing I can, but that's not always the case. It's just dependent on the space. If you have, say, a Tahoe and you take out the third row, 2 15s is no problem. But we don't want to try to cram those 2 15s into a smaller trunk. Even though they fit, we're not going to have the right airspace, so those subs are not going to be able to perform to their highest potential. The third mistake that people make when they're new to car audio is not looking at the impedance of their subwoofers when they buy them. For example, if we have 2 dual 2 subwoofers, we can only wire it down to 0.5 ohm or up to 2 ohm. On the flip side, if we have 2 dual 4 subs, we can wire it down to 1 ohm or up to 4 ohm. If we have an amplifier that goes down to 1 ohm stable, we want to make sure that we're getting 2 dual 4s in this case. If we had 2 dual 2s, we could only wire it down to 2 ohm and we'll only see a fraction of the power that that amplifier could put out. So we definitely want to make sure the impedance of the woofers that we buy match the amplifier that we're trying to put with it. The fourth mistake that people make when they're new to car audio is not looking at what level your radio distorts at. So a lot of people think, hey man, I'll just crank my radio all the way up and it'll be fine. That is not the case. Each radio has a distortion point. So if you can get your hands on, say, a DD1, you can actually run the distortion detector on it and see at what level does the radio begin to send a distorted signal to the speakers. For example, if we have a radio and it can go to volume 50, we do not want to always put it on volume 50. More often than not, we're going to need to dial back the volume to a level where the signal is not coming distorted. Again, a DD1 would be a good option, or we could see an oscilloscope and look at the curves and see to make sure that the top of our curves or our humps are not flat, that they're a nice curve. Again, this can really hurt the sound we're getting from the vehicle if the radio is sending a distorted signal to the speakers. The fifth mistake that people make when they're new to car audio is not picking good source material for their music. I know Bluetooth can be a very easy option for a lot of people to stream their music, but oftentimes Bluetooth can have a distorted signal in it. Something like CD or USB is a very good option because it is a physical medium that the music is being read from. Oftentimes, again, there's a lot of components in our vehicles, so when we use things like Bluetooth, there can be some latency in it and loss of quality when it's going from your phone to the actual radio. So if we can do physical media, that would be the best option, but if we are going to use Bluetooth, make sure whatever streaming platform you're using, the music is not distorted, because you can listen to one song, for example, on Apple Music and listen to the same song on Spotify, and they're not at the same level. So you have to make sure wherever you're listening, your music from, you have to make sure it is a clean, non-distorted signal. Those are the 5 mistakes that you do not want to make when you're new to car audio. I want to thank you for watching the video. If you have any suggestions on what videos you would like to see, drop them down in the comments below and I'll make sure to respond to you. We've been doing very well on TikTok as well, so I've been making some separate videos over there, so don't forget to go check that out. Again, if you have any suggestions, just let me know and I'll make sure to make a video on it.